Okay, I believe we should be live streaming here, but let me just confirm that we're actually up and streaming. And if so, if I am indeed live and streaming, well, I welcome you. Yep, we are. All right, very good. And hopefully everybody can hear me. So let me close that out. We'll go ahead and we'll post something out just to say that we are indeed up and streaming to the app so folks can see that. Great. All right, so for those of you that are just tuning in, it's great to have you here. I should be able to see you interacting in the chat. The easy way to find it is livestream.onedegreeoutside.com. But bottom line is I'll be looking for the chat as we go through to see what you have to say, and we should be able to communicate with each other that way. So I guess the first question would be here at 5:55 in the evening, why now on coming up for a live stream, right? So I think the answer to that is I have a pretty high bar for when I'm going to go up. Largely because you have our 1 Degree Outside weather app, and if you don't, I would encourage you to get it. But that has all the alerts that you need on it, right? We can also send updates to you through push notifications, which we've been doing. We can do that also with regard to social media, right? So generally, I want to find something high-end severe before I bother you with a live stream, although perhaps we should lower that threshold. Maybe you would prefer to see things a little bit sooner than that. So the reason right now is because, look, the atmosphere has been very much indicating throughout the course of the day that we were going to find a time, probably either side of 6 p.m., from 5:30 to 6:30, that would most favor rotation embedded inside of storms and the greatest chance for damaging weather. That seems to be unfolding, and so I figured let's get on before that starts to either come to fruition or doesn't, and give you an idea for what's happening. So the first thing that I'll do is I'm going to actually take you over to the full screen on the radar so you can see what's going on. So bottom line is that we've had this line of storms that's been essentially stretched out from the Lakes region of New Hampshire all the way down to northwestern Connecticut. Now, the area that's most likely to find strong storm growth will be across northwestern Connecticut, where a new severe thunderstorm warning was just issued a short time ago in Litchfield County. So essentially, this area in northwest Connecticut has the greatest amount of energy that's available and the greatest turning of wind. You can almost see what's going on here. As a matter of fact, what I'll do is I'll telestrate and show you what's happening here. There is a small kind of mini area of low pressure that has developed along the frontal boundary in northwestern Connecticut. So what happens when you get this type of a setup, I'm not only going to talk about Connecticut, by the way, we're going to start there because that is where the storms are taking off quickest. But you get the wind coming out of the south, and it tends to come a little bit more out of the southeast as that kind of center of low pressure approaches. And then you've got almost a mini cold front that trails on the south side through East Fishkill, New York. So my concern becomes right along where that warmer air starts to come into play. This is an area where you have to watch out for storm strengthening that not only could lead to large hail, but also rotation inside of the storms that may spin up a brief tornado. So we're going to keep a close eye on that. And of course, as you can see for yourself, that extends all the way up toward the Pioneer Valley for that matter as well, just coming in on Springfield. This line of storms also has taken off quickly. It is nowhere near at this point a strength where I'd be imminently concerned about rotation inside one of those. Although when you start getting up near Amherst, right over Northampton, that's a little bit different story. This has seen a rapid uptick in lightning, cloud-to-ground lightning strikes. You can see them plotted on here, and there are several. This is coming in real time. The flashes are lightning strikes within the last 5 minutes, but nonetheless, really most of these strikes that you see are within the course of the last 20 minutes or so. So Northampton getting hit hard now as the center of that storm comes over Route 10, where you see that purple that's showing up, and that is just coming into the center of Northampton and right across I-91. This is where we have hail at the center of the storm, and this is where when we've seen echoes like this on radar so far today, generally that's verified to be hail that's somewhere between half an inch and an inch in diameter. We've seen some bigger hail, mostly in New Hampshire, where there's some colder air up high in the sky. So what we're looking at here is Hadley up next, and then Route 116. You're going to be bearing the brunt of the storm as it crosses I-91 and continues to move to the northeast. We can do a little bit of a storm analysis on this, and you can see the towns and times there on your screen. Northampton at 6:06, Hadley at 6:15. This would be on the center, the core of the storm. Obviously, you're raining now. There's a brand new cloud-to-ground lightning strike in Hadley that just happened just this moment. Hatfield about 6:16, and Amherst about 6:27. 6:47 p.m. You'd be up next with this one. What we're looking at in the center of the screen here, and I'll move it around so you can see it a little bit better. Look, this is actually something that's an in-house product that's offered to do analysis of the storm. So you see that we've got a 90% chance of hail, a 40% chance that hail would be large enough to warrant a warning. There is a warning in this spot for both hail and damaging wind potential. The hail size estimate of about 3/4 of an inch, and then that BTI. So what we're using right now is called the Barron system, and it was actually developed down in Huntsville, Alabama, but the BTI is the Barron Tornado Index. So I watched that to see what their algorithm indicates the storm may be doing in terms of tornadic potential. I can tell you a 2.3 is very on par with what we've seen so far today, and therefore not something that's overly concerning right out of the gate. If we zoom the view out a little bit, you are under a severe thunderstorm warning in Shutesbury and Pelham. The reason you're under that severe thunderstorm warning in west central Massachusetts at the Quabbin is not because of the storm that's over you now. You're getting heavy rain, thunder, and lightning on Route 202, but indeed instead it's because of that next round that's coming out of Northampton. Part of the concern here is that at times we've started to see some broad-scale rotation in the storm, so one thing we're going to be watching very carefully is to see whether or not that rotation tightens at all. Can I show it to you? Absolutely. As a matter of fact, let's go over to storm relative velocity, where red indicates air moving in one direction, green indicates air moving in the other. There is some broad rotation that's going on with the storm that's coming over Northampton and East Hampton right now. But I say broad, and that's a very important distinction. So there's tight rotation, and when it rotates very tightly, that's when you get concerned about tornado development. When you have broad rotation, that happens very often. That's a self-sustaining thunderstorm, and that means it's going to stay strong. It has a better chance of producing damaging wind as you feed that wind in on the front side with warm and moist air, and you blast a downburst wind that may come in on the backside. But oftentimes you need that downburst wind to coincide with some of the heaviest rainfall in order to see the damaging wind results. So in this case, your pocket of greatest concern would likely be in this area that's right underneath the hail core. That is the best chance that you'd be pulling down some damaging wind. And yes, that does so happen to be coming right into Northampton, particularly the south side of town right now, and is just about to enter I-91. I get these new scans about every 60 seconds or so we're going to take a little bit of a tour and then we'll come back again. Notice the farther north that you go when you get up around Irving, Wendell, and Athol. This is where we have a flash flood warning that's in effect. That flash flood warning out until 8:15, just too much rain that came in too short of a period of time. And so this is something that we're concerned about with you for road washouts, water across the road. Craig chiming in on the chat, and again, I invite all of you to chime in on the chat. You can do that at livestream.onedegreeoutside.com. Some of you are watching on YouTube. We've got this going on Twitch. We have this going on Facebook, and we have this going on X. So you're able to find us on all those platforms. I should be able to see the chat on all of those as they come in, but I will from time to time take a moment to check in on social media to make sure I'm not missing anything you're asking. Craig says, any severe our way tonight in North Weymouth? Craig, great question. I'll answer that in just a moment. We'll take a look at the radar forecast here in a minute. Let's stick with the current radar and what's going on. We've got another round of a strong thunderstorm with frequent lightning. Look at all those white and yellow strikes that are coming down, cloud-to-ground strikes from Temple and Sharon, New Hampshire, down across the line to Ashburnham, Massachusetts, and even, yes, it goes farther south all the way to Westminster. There is what you call a shear axis here. So for those of you that are into the meteorology of things, if I go to the storm relative velocity, you can see a big area of red and a big area of green. So for the most part, when we see a shear axis like this, we don't worry too much, right? Well, in this particular instance, the only thing I would look at is where is my rotation tight? Where do I see things going in different directions very close to one another? That is near Mason, New Hampshire. So at this point, what I would do is say, all right, let's go over to the regular radar scan and notice that is not underneath. That is not underneath a big updraft or a strong part of the storm. It's not under the storm core. You don't worry about tornado development with that. So indeed, all you're seeing there is a wind shift axis. We call it a shear axis that's coming through. But when you get on the back side of that, if we switch over to velocity, and I kind of take a probe of what's going on in there. You say 18, 22 miles an hour, 19. Yeah, so that doesn't seem that bad, right? Well, the flip side to that is you can get downburst winds where the heavy rain and hail helps to kind of tap into the wind aloft and bring it down to the ground level. So it's not impossible you would find a damaging wind burst in there, but notice that that is not one of the severe warned areas right now. Wind of New Hampshire has a storm that's a good little cluster for you. This one had prompted a severe thunderstorm warning in Massachusetts before it crossed the state line, just not really showing enough at this point to warrant continuing a warning. Notice that tornado index, Barrett tornado index, down at about 1.4. You do still have an 80% chance of hail, but only a 30% chance of severe hail. So that tells us it's probably pea-sized hail that's coming through. It's headed northeast up towards Sandown and Hampstead. We have been raining like the dickens across Hooksett, Concord, Laconia, Franklin, Loudoun. Look, we only have a couple of areas right now that are under flash flood warnings, and that would be around Henniker and Hillsborough. But I have to think it is only a matter of time and probably minutes before we start to see some flash flood warnings coming up when you get on the west side of I-93 and in the I-89 corridor southward down toward Ringe, especially with more storms that are on the way here. Nonetheless, you can expect that there's certainly plenty of ponding of water and at least small-scale flooding going on in those areas. Farther to the east, Craig says, what about us in North Weymouth? What about the Boston area? Are we going to be dealing with anything out of this? Let's go ahead and take a look together. We'll do a couple of things for you. I want to, first of all, show you what's going on with regard to storm energy. Notice what's happening here, Craig, and everybody else who's wondering. And again, I invite you to chime in on the chat. This is our storm energy, available thunderstorm energy. For those of you who love weather, we know it is CAPE, convective available potential energy. You can think about it as the energy available to go into a storm. So what we look at here is we say, okay, we've got moderate storm energy around Barrie and Worcester, but notice where Craig is in North Weymouth, or notice Boston, or anywhere near the coastline, even within about 30 miles or so. Very limited thunderstorm energy, and there's good reason for that. We had a sea breeze kick up today. That sea breeze almost just became a prevailing easterly and east-southeasterly wind. So these storms, while I can't tell you they'll entirely fall apart as they move in, which they might, it's very unlikely that as they move inside of Route 495, they'd be able to maintain much in the way of severe or damaging criteria. We think this is mostly reserved for the areas that have the greatest storm energy, and that's where we're watching right now. I can also show you with regard to what's going on in the energy helicity index. You say, what in the world would energy helicity index be? Basically, we can take energy or thunderstorm energy and cross that with the tendency for the air to form a helix. If you think about a helix, that would be something like what you see in DNA, right? If you think about that, essentially, it's similar to a vortex. So what this does is this is a parameter that we can take energy and the tendency for the air to spin and put them together. Well, now you start to see one small area that is little, all right? It's not even notable, but it's little on that legend at the top, but it's present from Barrie to Hubbardston to Leominster. So we'll watch carefully. And again, that's why I say this was the time. You see another little area, Chicopee to Belchertown, right? This was the time that I knew we were probably going to want to watch most carefully in the atmosphere to see if there's anything that pops up in terms of spin. So at this point, I look at that, and certainly, again, it's nothing where I'd go screaming from the hilltops, but it's enough that I said, you know what, we might as well. You guys count on us for some complete weather coverage. We're lucky to be digital and able to do that along the way, so let's do it, right? All right, so Craig says, do we get anything in North Weymouth? Craig will put things into motion, and the answer is maybe. Yeah, you should get a little something, but notice, even by 8 p.m., look at how it's having such a hard time. The storm's making it inside of I-95. Eventually, when they make it, it's late this evening, there's 10 p.m., and what happened to them? They fizzled, right? Because they ran out of that energy that we looked at together. So that's why when I look at this, I say, you know what? I don't think that Eastern Mass is going to be very much into this one this time. As you guys know, we do the forecast for the Boston Duck Tours. So one of the things that we had told them early this morning was, look, severe weather threat has been highlighted, but chances are very good that in the Boston metropolitan area, we're just not going to have to deal with that during the course of the day today and even this evening. Probably not enough energy to get the job done here on bringing severe weather into the Boston metro. Could be a little bit different story in the Merrimack Valley. You do have that wind that came in off the ocean, so we look together at the fact that you really cut back on the storm energy. I think the better chance is outside of 495, but nonetheless, we'll keep an eye on that. Here we go, a hailer just starting up now. Remember, we were looking at this line that was coming into the Pioneer Valley, and here it is strengthening. So now we've got a hail core coming in. Now, the National Weather Service algorithm projects perhaps 1.75 inch hail that's coming in, and look at that. We've got agreement here when we come along with the Barron Index, which does a nice job of kind of estimating this as well. It's also producing 1.75 inch hail. One thing I will say is as this storm starts to move in, it is expected to get to Holyoke at 6:33 and Chicopee at 6:35. I think we're talking about probably a situation where right now the hail core is aloft. I doubt that anybody in Westfield and along the Mass Turnpike is going to report getting 1.75 inch hail right now. The radar's job is to try and estimate what's going on through a deep layer of the atmosphere. So it scans very high into the sky, and then that helps you to see what's happening. All right, I'm just looking back over my shoulder because I am looking at what's going on in northwest Connecticut. So let me shift the view down to northwestern Connecticut for a little bit better view here. This is the line of storms that has really taken off. This is one nasty storm that's coming across Route 44 and coming into Route 8 now as it moves east-northeast toward Heartland. Yep, there you go. Brand new severe thunderstorm warning coming out in advance of this line, right? So you've got now brand new severe thunderstorm warning just issued here. This one will be up till 7 p.m. for the exact area we just looked at, which is going to be the Pioneer Valley, stretched all the way down into Heartland, Connecticut, and then down to Granby and Simsbury. The thought here, this storm is going to continue to move off to the east. Again, I mentioned to you, okay, still not overly concerning on the rotation. Let me get you switched over to rotation in northwest Connecticut so you can get an eye on that. Here's our storm relative velocity. I'd actually like to switch this to the Albany radar, and there we go. That gives us a little bit better view. Is there a broad rotation in this storm as it comes in across or toward Route 44? There is. Actually, what I'm looking at right here is, there you go. When you get right along, essentially, the junction of the storm where you've got the inflow coming in from the south and you've got the cooler air trying to blast in on the west side of the storm, that's where you've got some amount of rotation inside the storm. However, when I look and I see that there's a pretty decent separation going on here between the red and the green, that tells me, okay, we're not tightly rotating to the point that I would be imminently concerned about tornadic development just yet. So when I look at northwest Connecticut, I'm watching it. I certainly think that there's the potential that we may end up getting there somewhere along this line, but I'm certainly at this point not overwhelmed in the view of that. Look at the way lightning's taking off when you get around Westfield, Chicopee, and Holyoke. Again, this is a severe thunderstorm warning now that's in effect. Chicopee and Holyoke, you are up next. This thing straddling Route 90. Let me go back to the chat, see if anybody else is at. Oh, yeah, we've got a lot of folks chiming in. Great. Good to hear from you. Keep chiming in on the chat via Facebook. Bob Thompson, pan up to Weir, New Hampshire. I'm on lunch break. All right, Bob, I'll take good care of you. Absolutely. You know, it's always great to hear from you. Let's go up. Weir, New Hampshire. There you are. You're in the middle of the rain. You're past the worst of the thunder and lightning and the heaviest of the storm. I think you're by the damaging wind threat now. We are going to watch that storm coming out of Greenville. That one's got at least certainly big hail, a lot of lightning, and you do have to watch out that you get a little bit of a rain-wrapped rotation in there. Right now, though, that is not imminent at all. So I think in Weir, you just got more heavy rain. Watch out for flash flooding when you start to drive. That's going to be part of what you'll have to watch for there. Donnie says best in the bill. Thank you, Donnie. It's very nice. Art says, hey, Matt, heard lightning hit a house where I used to live in Merrimack, Mass. this morning. Love 1 degree outside. Yeah, Art, we had some pretty decent storms this morning. There's an old rule that if you get convection or thunderstorms in the morning, if it's early enough, a lot of times that's an indicator you're going to have an active day, and that certainly was the case for us this time around as well. Who else we hearing from? Also on Facebook, Adam Goodwin. You guys are the best. Thank you, Adam. Linda says, watching from Mount Washington Valley of New Hampshire. Looks like some rumbles for us. Love your coverage. Thank you for watching us from the Mount Washington Valley. Let's take a scan up for you. And what I'm going to do here is I'll change the view. So we've got a couple options on what I can share with you. What I'll do now is actually put on the composite of radar. There we go. So this is going to take care of you a little bit better, I think, when we get up around the Mount Washington Valley. You ready? There we go. So yeah, we'll go also over to the gray main radar. That's going to help us out as well. There we go. So right now around the Mount Washington Valley, it's mostly been a steady rain, but you do have some thunder and lightning at Tamworth. That's getting ready to cross Route 16. It's slowly moving off to the northeast. If I zoom in a little bit more, you can see from Whiteface, North Sandwich, running across to Whittier. It's not like there's a lot of lightning like you've got in western Massachusetts, but you do have occasional bolts. There's another strike. Look at that in Tamworth on the east side of town. Chicora is going to be up next with this. So you're going to get some more rumbles that come in. Madison to Albany, Bartlett eventually getting some of this as well. We come farther south through the Lakes region. It's mostly now gone over to kind of a what we'll call plain rain, so to speak. And then as we come farther south, we'll get back over to the southern New England radar. I want to take another quick look at what's happening with this storm. This is one heck of a storm over New Ipswich. Look, Greenville, New Hampshire, headed for Milford. This is a storm that when you look at it, you don't necessarily think, that it would necessarily be all that severe in terms of the fact there's no warning with it. You're not worried. And by the way, when I look over my shoulder, just so you know, what I'm doing is I'm constantly kind of reevaluating what's going on in Northwest Connecticut and Western Mass. And I'll take you there. I just don't want to be caught off guard talking about something in one spot while we have something more serious developing in another. But at this point, I don't see any evidence of that. So back to this storm headed for Milford, New Hampshire. This is one of those classic ones where there is no lightning warning, right? So as silly as that might seem, there's good reason for that, because you need to verify a warning in some way, shape, or form. We know that wind damage can happen from strong winds. Hail can cause damage as well, right? But with lightning, the problem is it almost becomes a liability, right? Because if you relied on a warning to come out every time there'd be a lightning strike, sometimes you get a storm that has one lightning strike. And that can be a problem if the one lightning strike hits in the wrong place. So as a result, there's just no warnings at all that go for lightning. So right now, folks in Greenville, you are rocking and rolling. I mean, some folks in Greenville are going to say that was one of the worst storms I can remember. Because when you are surrounded by cloud-to-ground lightning, it's like being in a movie. And that's what's going on in Greenville right now. So again, that storm's going to head for Milford next. There's the times and towns that are on your screen. You can see that we're talking about Mason at 6:18, Wilton, New Hampshire at 6:29, Milford at 6:34, Mount Vernon at 6:37, Amherst at 6:37, and that again is on the core of the storm, the center of the storm overall. All right, let's see, hearing from other folks who are chiming in here on the chat. And look, we're going out all across the platform. So we're out on Facebook, X, YouTube, Twitch, and hopefully I'm seeing everybody's feedback that's happening right here, because I really do want to hear from all of you. The whole idea about doing this thing, 1 degree outside and launching this company was to make this an interactive experience, because for 25 years, I broadcast to everybody, right? And I don't get to hear from you when we do that. So a big thing for me, and Danielle is right in here in the same belief, is that we want this to be something where you can ask questions, where you can interact, where you can develop a relationship, and we develop one with you. So feel free to chime in on the chat as we go through here. Okay, let's see. Will it make it to Southern New England, says Michael. Michael, great question, and I will answer that again. We answered it just a short time ago, but give me one moment. I'll cycle through that, and we'll answer that again. Matt says, love having the live streams back. Does that nasty line make it to Hartford? You know what, Matt? I think that this one, we are going to get some of this into Hartford. I think the worst of it, though, is occurring right now, where we've got one thing, if you're just joining, I had mentioned earlier, is it's almost like there's a little miniature low pressure that's right in here over northwest Connecticut, just northwest of Torrington. So what you're doing is you're pulling in warm air on the south side, and that's why you're seeing this thing really taking off. Actually, the science of that is when you've got warm air coming in, warm air tends to rise. So what you're doing is you already have thunderstorms, but you're enhancing the rising motion. So oftentimes when you get a setup like this, you can really explode the storms. That's actually the reason that I came up for this live stream, because I saw that coming together for the Pioneer Valley in northwest Connecticut. I think Hartford, because you're going to be on the south side of this, you'll get some thunderstorms. Chances are good the very worst of it stays up from Windsor to Enfield and then northward up into the southern kind of corridor of Massachusetts, the Mass Turnpike corridor that's dealing with it right now. So that's my take on that. Nothing yet in Essex. Scott, I don't know that you're going to get much in Essex. We're going to talk about that again in a moment if you missed it a few moments ago. Matthew, good evening to you. Weather impact day 301 remains okay. I like that, Matthew. Joan says, stay safe, everyone watching from southeastern Mass. So, Joan, you're pretty much going to be out of this event, and I'll show you that here in just a second. We'll go through the forecast radar so you can get a feel for that in just a moment. Gail says, thanks for keeping us updated. Thank you, Gail. Dan says, you're the best. Thanks to coverage from Merrimack, New Hampshire. All right, let me zoom the view up a little. There you go. Now I got you back in there, Dan. All right, get out of here with your technical weather terminology. Rocking and rolling. Yeah, that's right. Ashburnham's got a light show going on. Eric, there's a lot of folks that if you're in the center of these storms, you've got one heck of a light show happening right now. Strong storms and rain just came through Albany, New York in the last hour and a half. Yes, it did. And now we've got it in across western portions of New England. Thank you, Mike, for the heads up there. Flood watch. Yeah, that's right, Matthew. All right. So let's go ahead and take you through and cycle through because some of you have been asking about where's it going next, who's going to deal with it, and what's the expectation, right? Let's do it. First of all, this is if you missed it earlier, we're updating this in real time. So if you stay with the live stream, not only will you get the continued radar analysis, but actually all these maps we show you are constantly updating too. So in this particular instance, this is the thunderstorm energy map. Not much has changed, a little bit from the last time we looked at it. So basically, we've got a good amount, low to moderate, now really moderate thunderstorm energy all the way through Worcester, right, or central Massachusetts. You can see that pocket around Holden, Spencer, Oakham, Hubbardston, right? So expect the storms as they move toward you. They very well may maintain their strength. They're going to still have something to them as they come toward Leominster, Lancaster, and Clinton, but they'll start to weaken because, look, you really run out of thunderstorm energy. So in Essex, you don't have hardly any. Along the coastline, we don't have hardly any. How come? Well, we had a wind for most of the day that was coming in off the ocean, and it penetrated really deep inland. I mean, that wind went all the way to central New England, so that really killed any thunderstorm action because remember, the ocean's only 50 degrees right now. Well, some spots a little bit better than that, but not by much, right? See what I mean about Hartford, too? Not really getting into this overall, right? Probably talking about what's going on with the lower thunderstorm energy. All right, let's see. Skywarn spotters. Westfield, Mass. just reported quarter-sized hail. There you go. We're coming back to you in just a second, Westfield. So there's that big hail core we looked at, Pioneer Valley, right? Try and keep you a step ahead of the storm. So we did that for you in Westfield. This is energy and spin. Now, this is actually the real kind of trigger for why is it all right. We're going to go up because I was waiting for 5:30 to 6:30 to see whether the atmosphere did what it's been kind of forecast to do for the last couple of days. And indeed, it's got these pockets of energy and spin together. What does that mean? Look, bottom line is it's in these areas you watch most carefully to see if you got any tighter rotation. Rather than a broad scale rotation. Broad scale rotation is fine. When I look over my shoulder, by the way, I'm just looking at some other radar tools as well so that I mentioned this earlier so I don't miss something important that's going on in a different area than what we're looking at. Because while we do this tour, that's fine. But it's nice to stay on top of things. So we're watching for that combination of energy and spin. Look, if you look at the legend at the top, right, it's the worst of it is little, right? We're not even at notable. So I look at that and I say, all right, it's not like you have to scream from the mountaintops as to what's going to be happening here, but nonetheless, it's worth being aware of, and that's why I wanted to come on and be with you. In terms of that forecast of what's going to happen next, already the forecast to some extent is kind of wrong here, right? Let's see if we can go in, and I want to see if I can actually modify that for you and see what I can do here. Hold on one second. What if I were to come into this? There we go. Yeah, all right. I know what I got to do. Let's get rid of this. Ready? Yep. Okay, great. So here is our forecast then as we go out through the course of the next few hours. Notice what happens. The storms mostly stay north and west of I-495, and by the time they break inside of 495, 95 timestamp in the upper left at 9:30 or so, they are just a shell of their former selves. And then Southeast Mass and the Cape, you really never get anything because remember what we talked about, right? You're dealing with what has been that onshore wind from the cool ocean, and it's been kind of killing things off overall. Let's get back to the radar, see what's going on, and also let me take another round through the chat to see what else you guys have to say because I really appreciate those of you kind of chiming in and letting us know what's going on in your area or asking whatever questions you have. That's why we're here. New Hampshire getting pounded, heavy rain, thunderstorm. Esther, that certainly is the case. We're surprised at Berry Hill Farm. We're not in the mix, but see you on radar. Tomorrow we'll get rain, not like today. Yeah, you'll get some rain tomorrow. Art, although it's probably not going to be a big event like today. It doesn't look like it would be by the way things are looking right now. Oh, my poor AI camera. Sorry if I get you seasick here every time I move. Ann says, dry but dark in Dedham, Mass. Yeah, Ann, you don't need to worry for quite a while. You can see actually the storms are pretty far off and they're moving off to the east, but not a real fast pace. So I think you're going to be fine. You're also going to be in that area that's got a little bit less thunderstorm energy as well. Let's zoom in a little bit more, and I want to take you on a tour again, and let's just see, because we get a new scan every 60 seconds, and I've got more to show you than 60 seconds. So basically, by the time we get back to this, well, you've already essentially gone through, and we need to catch you up on what's happening. So notice some damage reports starting to come in. This is a hail that comes in out of Bow. This was reported by a weather spotter. Do we have an inch? Yes, 1.3 inch hail in Bow at about 5:20. So about an hour ago, 5:08, we had what is this? Observed tree partially blocking Woodbill Road south of Bow. All right, very good. This is going to be, what do we have here? Also in Bow, a few small trees. So Bow hit pretty hard when this came through. I see a flash flood report out by Antrim. This is in Hillsborough. Spotter reported flooding, 3.25 inches of rain in less than 2 hours. So that's fairly decent there as well, isn't it? All right, meanwhile, Rob at the Skywarn Spotters Network, you've got more quarter-sized hail that's come down in Westfield. So let's get to Westfield. We were waiting on that hail core, and now it's arrived. There it is. All right, hail core has just moved through Westfield. And look at this. Here's one of the reports that comes in, 6:12 p.m. Talk about hats off to the Skywarn Spotter Network, doing a heck of a job, as always, getting the word out. Look at that. I mean, it's 6 minutes. It probably took them 6 minutes to get that posted, I would say. It's been a little more than that now, but nonetheless, Westfield quarter-size hail, and the reports continue to come in. Where is the hail core now? If you're watching from the Pioneer Valley, it's right there under the purple. You've got frequent cloud-to-ground lightning, and right over Southampton Road is where the hail core is. That's coming up to the northeast, so get ready. Buck Pond Road, East Mountain Road, running along in south of 202 down to the Mass Pike. This is going to be the corridor where we're going to find the hail that comes down. Again, you've got quarter-sized hail that's already been reported, and there's probably a little bit of hail now at North Chicopee. That storm has started to strengthen at the core a little bit. That's going to continue to move off to the north and east as well, sticking just north of the Mass Turnpike. If I zoom out, that wall of lightning becomes a little bit more obvious, doesn't it? Yeah, that's a pretty good amount of lightning. So again, we were talking earlier that this is quite the show to be in when you're in the center of this thing. And again, Holyoke, you're up next. You'll see a little bit more of this will be coming in shortly as everything kind of moves off to the north and east. All right. Meanwhile, Red Sox at Yankees are in rain delay. So there you go. There's your real-time update. We'll do a sports update for you as well, which if you're watching from home, I guess you know that already. Nonetheless, there is the center of the next storm down in Connecticut. This is the one that essentially goes from Granville, Mass. to Hartland, Connecticut. We expected Hartland to be next up, and you've got it now. So Southwick down Route 202 to Granby. Hang on. A storm's going to come in on top of you next. Townsend Times, we'll put them on your screen. Hartland about 627. Granville about 6:54. Yeah, we already have Hartland, right? We're already into that. Westfield, you're already into the first storm. Look at this. The one coming out of Granville is going to try and hit you next. So you're going to get it one after the next. It's a 1-2 punch that comes in on top of you here. Just like Holyoke, you're getting hit right now, but you got the next storm coming out of Westfield, the one that just dropped the hail. That's going to move up toward you as well. There's another area of kind of real focused hail that's coming across Route 8 and 44 momentarily. So this storm is going to continue to move off to the northeast, and that means it's probably going to head from New Hartford up to Hartland with a 1-2 punch for you as well. So some of these same areas kind of keep getting hit again and again for us. Let's go over and swing this over to our storm relative velocity, where we look to see if there's any real tight rotation that we need to be concerned about. As we zoom in, again, red would indicate air moving one way, green would indicate air moving the other, and you see a pretty decent separation that goes on around Route 202. Okay, Westfield just gusted to 59 miles per hour. Skywarn Weather Spotter Network noticing that. Thank you for the heads up on that. Westfield is gusted to 59. So while we're on velocity, let's go ahead and do it. Storm relative, I look at this and I see one area that would stand out to me and say, do I have concern for a tightening rotation? I circled it for you just southwest of Holyoke. Next thing I would do with that is find out, are we under a storm core? The answer to that is yes. It's not an exceptionally strong updraft, so at this point I wouldn't be imminently concerned that you'd have something spin up here, but that is going to be one area that right away it drew my eye, and I said, all right, we've got to watch that as it comes in on top of Holyoke. Enough separation right now that I wouldn't be worried about an immediate tornadic spin up on that one. Meanwhile, same thing when you get down around that storm coming out of Westfield, right? You've got some separation, and that's fine. And when you look at the velocity, this is what's really interesting. You say, well, it's 21. How in the world did they gust to 50 some odd miles per hour? I'll show you. Let me zoom the view out a little bit. I'm going to swing over. I've got another system that's running a great program called WSV3. Love this program. This is built by Paul Maravelius, who is in Windham, New Hampshire. It is a completely local product. Part of the reason that I absolutely love it. I love to support, as you might imagine, local businesses, but Paul is really, he's a whiz when it comes to this stuff. And one of the things that we've got, whoa, it's me not driving well. Paul's software is great. One of the things that we've got here is the ability to estimate the downdraft gust potential. So let's go ahead and switch over to that. And now I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And this is where we say, wait a minute now. We just looked and saw that it was only 20 something miles per hour and said, how did they get a 55 gust? Here it is. You analyze the downburst gust potential and you're 50 to 55 miles per hour. So this radar estimate, according to the latest observation, not an estimate, an observation out of Westfield, Mass., 55 miles per hour. This radar estimate is right on the money. Chicopee, hang on. It's headed for you next. So that's going to be the next area that we're going to be looking for potential downburst wind coming out of Westfield. It's verified, and it's coming next into Chicopee. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to leave that gust potential right on here so we can come back to... Oh, did I not switch it? I'm a dopopotamus. Hold on a second here. Sorry. Let's get you back over. Hold on. Sorry about that, folks. There we go. Let me do it again. All right. Let's do this again. Oh, there I go. Bad driving again. Let's do this again. So this is what I was showing you. I apologize, folks. It's great technology that we have. We're so happy to be able to bring it to you, but I have to drive it well in order for it to make a difference, right? So if we come in across someplace like Westfield, there you go. There's that 55 mile per hour radar estimate on downburst wind, and that's what's coming in across Westfield right now, and that's what I'm telling you is going to try and make it into Chicopee over the next few minutes. So you want to be sheltered indoors, away from windows as that storm approaches. All right, so with that, now let me switch you back over to the more conventional radar so you can get a fairly good view at what's going on and something you're a little bit more accustomed to seeing. There we go. Here is your continued severe thunderstorm warning for the Pioneer Valley with a line of storms that has intensified as it's moved in and has produced quarter-sized hail and 55 mile per hour observed wind gusts. Center of the next core is not the one that produced the 55 mile per hour gust, but certainly has the potential to do the same. This is coming out of Southwick now. It's going to continue, and it's going to make its way at the core of the storm. Again, the leading edge gets there sooner. Core of the storm comes through West Springfield by 6:57 and Agawam by 6:58. Notice your hail estimate at 80% chance of hail, 20% chance of severe. I guarantee you it's higher than that. And the reason I say that is because that is one nasty storm core. We're seeing an uptick in lightning that's going on. That's going to be another one that's going to produce some decent-sized hail as it comes into Southwick, comes across Route 57, and then blasts into 187 on its way over to Agawam. So that's going to be the next one that we're watching here for those of you that are tuning in from the Pioneer Valley. Let me get back over to the chat because I appreciate everybody who chimes in, and I don't want to in any way to neglect what you've got to say, offer, or ask. North Grafton here, nothing happening. Michelle, thank you for that. Calm down in the Pioneer Valley. Good. Kevin, you're back behind the storm. That's fantastic. My guess would be you must be north of Westfield or maybe in Westfield where you already had that gust and it came on through. Some noise but no precipitation yet in Hudson, Massachusetts. Great. I'll zoom the view out a little bit better and you can get a little better idea for what's going on for where you're at. All right. Keep zooming out so that while I answer some of these questions, we get you covered just about no matter where you are. If you're in northern New England, hang on. I'm coming for you. I haven't forgotten about you, all right? Hazy and foreboding and still in Watertown. So here's the interesting thing. In Watertown, we did have a bit of an...
Near your location.
Oh, lightning has been detected near downtown Worcester. So as you know, we take care of the Worcester Emergency Management Agency along with a number of other city departments. So I get my alerts whenever we get any lightning or any other type of weather approaching the city of Worcester. So all right, very good. They know about that. That's in the forecast for today. So they'll be just fine. So yes, I was starting to say Watertown. You're outside of the worst thunderstorm energy. The storms may survive. They're unlikely to be as strong or damaging when they get to you. Serge, thank you. That's very nice of you to say. Fantastic coverage. Really appreciate that. William in Palmer, good to hear from you. Stay with us. We'll get you covered. Pauline, thank you very much for the great feedback. And Earl, West Brookfield, audible thunder for the last hour. No wind and rain yet. Okay, so let's take a closer look at why. Let's go ahead and what I'll do is some of you have asked about what time the storms are going to be where. So if you missed that, I will do it for you again. We're at an inflection point. Yeah, we're at an inflection point on the storm. So I do want to stick with radar coverage just a little bit more because there's a couple things I'm looking. So when I look over my shoulder, I've got multiple radar programs going at once for behind the scenes analysis. And so one thing I'm noticing is that I'll show you. What I usually like to do is just take a look off behind me to make sure that what I'm going to show you, is actually, yep, okay, so great. So what I'm going to do is bring you up. I want to kind of prep for in my head what I'm going to show you so that you have an idea when I explain it to you of what's going on, right? I don't want to confuse folks more than help. So essentially what we're seeing here in northwestern and northern Connecticut around Heartland is we've got a broad rotation that's happening inside the storm. I bet if I switch to the Albany radar, this shows it even better. I'll telestrate it on there for you. But we're starting to see a little bit of that rotation try to tighten. The only thing is, again, I've been looking to see, does that fall underneath a storm core? That's when you have to worry. In this particular instance, yes. Interesting, you're also seeing a bit of what we call a notch developing here. That it's not overwhelming, but when I look at this, just so you know, what I see going on weather-wise is we have air that's feeding into the storm here. We've got a storm circulation trying to develop in the middle, and then we've got air that's feeding around the backside here. So what that tells me is that if we're in Granby, Connecticut, north to Southwick, Massachusetts, we want to just make sure that we're sheltered inside because this has certainly got the potential to be a nasty storm. What these do is when they rotate, even if they don't reach the point for tornadic development, which at this point, I think we're still below that threshold, certainly. But even if they don't rotate to that point, it does help to enhance the downburst wind. So it actually, believe it or not, just by having rotation in the storm is a self-maintenance process that allows for the downburst to last longer, be a little bit stronger. So that's why I say in this area, as I zoom in, if we look at what's going on, I would say anybody at Route 202 from Granby to Mechanicsville, Goodrichville, running all the way up across the state line into Southwick, just be advised that with the storm coming in, good to stay sheltered indoors, away from windows as the storm comes in. You're under a severe thunderstorm warning, which means you really should be doing that anyway, right? Here's one of those hail cores now. We were watching Chicopee, and we were getting ready on one of the more significant bursts of wind that may be coming in here because we had seen it come through Westfield, and so we were waiting on it in Chicopee. Let's go ahead and swing over to the velocity plot. Okay, so again, the velocity aloft, we see that and say, oh, that doesn't seem like that big of a deal, right? Actually, and I can tell you why I say that. I can actually go ahead and show you what the velocity is coming back at 4 miles an hour, please, right? Nothing to worry about. Hold on. Again, let's do what we did last time. Let me switch you back over and bring you over to that other radar program that I told you was built locally in New England. Looks like it's lost a little bit of the data right now, but that's all right. I think I can figure out how to bring it back here for a second. Let me see if I can go ahead and get off of this. We'll go back over to a regular reflectivity, and then let's try and go ahead and tell it we want that downdraft gust potential again and see if we get it. Yeah, it looks like it doesn't want to work right now. That's all right. We'll come back to it again. But bottom line is that what we were seeing last time we were on this was that underneath the heaviest downpours, we were indeed verifying that we were having some gusts on the order of about 50 to 55 miles per hour. So just understand that at the center of some of these hail cores, at the center of some of these downpours, that's where we're seeing the issues with the locally damaging wind. Westfield Airport that was one of the areas that gusted to 55 observed. All right, let's see. We've got more on the chat. Again, I try to check in with you every few minutes because the whole idea of 1 Degree Outside is it's interactive. No longer after 25 years of talking to you, I now get to talk with you, and that's pretty nice. So Peter Labasco, fog offshore near Cape Ann. Any downpours or a marine layer jinx? Long story short, Peter, I'll show you here in a second the forecast, but it's going to be the jinx. That's what you got coming in again. You got the jinx here. I haven't done it in a little while, and I told you I would. So let's zoom the view out for just a moment here, and let's go ahead and show you the forecast maps as to what's going to be happening and why. All right, so if you're just tuning in, great to have you here, and appreciate that you're making 1 Degree Outside part of your weather routine. We always try to be here for you. We try to set a pretty high bar on the live stream, and the reason we do that, and again, if we hear enough feedback from you that you guys like this stuff, even when it's just plain old, thunderstorms and severe thunderstorms, we can certainly do something with that. But, my thing is, I usually don't like to get you worried unless there's something interesting and worrisome potentially to look at. So in this particular instance, we saw the significant thunderstorm energy around the Pioneer Valley in northern Connecticut as the storms were approaching and said, all right, these are going to strengthen and take off. And we've reached the time. Now we're just starting to come out of it, but we're at the time when we have the greatest chance of some spin going on inside these storms as well. Notice the pocket of significant thunderstorm energy right now from Torrington to Windsor and Bloomfield. Also more significant if you line it with the legend at the top, moderate thunderstorm energy around Warren and Palmer, Auburn, Worcester, and then it gets less as you start to make your way inside of 495. And yes, to Peter Labasco's point, the marine layer jinx. There it is. You completely run out of thunderstorm energy as you come to the coastline. So, do they hold together? I'm not even sure they'll do that. Let me skip forward and show you the forecast radar, okay? Timestamps in the upper left. I'm going to play things through. Look at this. If I go to 8:15, I mean, yeah, you get showers trying to survive inside of 495, but look at that. I mean, everything just fizzles, weakens by 10 p.m., showers, and who never gets anything? Well, you might get something at midnight in southeastern Mass, but the Cape, not really. Not really. Peter will give you the coin on that one, okay? We'll coin the term thanks to you, the marine layer jinx for those who love thunderstorms. For those who don't want to have to worry about it, well, you're in pretty good position. Back over to the bigger radar as I come back to the chat to see what else you folks have to say, ask, and offer. William, getting dark in Palmer, Massachusetts. Yep, that makes sense. Here it comes. Looks ominous in Salem, New Hampshire. No rain yet. Yeah, you can see it's not far, right? But it's going to start to run into some lower thunderstorm energy pretty soon. You're going to get missed just to the north by the bigger one. We'll take a look together. I'll zoom you in here in just a second. Norman, I'm so glad you like being here from Hardwick, Mass. Thank you very much. Appreciate the feedback there as well. I keep looking over my shoulder, not because I'm disinterested in you, but rather because I've got another radar program that's loaded up over my shoulder, and so I just keep checking in to make sure that we don't have anything that's too concerning that's trying to spin up literally and figuratively. I haven't taken care of you in New Hampshire for a while. I want to take good care of you in New Hampshire and Maine, so here's what I'm going to do. We're going to take care of everybody. But let's start the tour up north, okay? And so what that means is I'll actually swing over to the gray main radar. There we go. By the way, I suppose I should, I didn't used to have to do this, but things the way they are. This is National Weather Service, NOAA weather radar that you're watching here. Your tax dollars paid for this. It's the WSR-88D. It was first installed in 1988 and updated multiple times along the way. The latest update and upgrade being a dual polarization that allows us not only to see which way air is moving inside storms, but to see even what type of precipitation, how big the hail is, and how heavy the rain is. Again, this is all part of the government program NOAA puts together for you. So when you hear about the various cuts going on, I'm not going to go political, but I am going to remind you, because now it's the right thing to do, to remind you, you paid for this network. So thanks to all of us and our parents and our grandparents and our great-grandparents for paying for these amazing radars and technology that are in place right now and belong to each and every one of us. Rumford, you got heavy rain coming down. You don't have a lot in the way of lightning right now. When you get down around North Conway, Bartlett, and Glen, we've got steady and heavy rain along Route 16. That's been our biggest problem in central New Hampshire, has been the heavy rain. We've had some areas that have been experiencing some flash flooding. One of those areas, Hillsborough, New Hampshire. Spotter reported the road was flooding, about 3.25 inches of rain in an hour and 45 minutes. It's no great shakes when you get along I-93, run through Franklin, and frankly all the way up in through Sanborn. You come farther south, we got a little break now in Concord. We got blasted earlier in Concord. We really did. What's interesting to me, and I've always found this interesting, is that for the past few years, and I've asked about this, and there really doesn't seem to be, anybody doesn't seem to have an answer, but you look at the Gray Main radar. Now you look at that storm over Manchester. I'm going to swing it over to the Norton or Taunton, Mass radar. Okay, look at the difference. So this has been going on for about the past 3 years, where you get a huge difference in how, quote, hot the radar looks. I'll tell you, I find that when it comes to ground truth, usually that Taunton one's better. Now, some of you will say, well, yeah, but keep in mind, right, wouldn't the Gray Main radar be closer? No, not to the storm in Manchester. As a matter of fact, the radar beam out of Taunton, Mass scans the sky at about 7,000 feet in Manchester. The beam out of Gray Main scans the sky at about 12,000 feet or so. So no, you're closer when you get to the Taunton radar. But nonetheless, just something to keep in mind if you're into weather and you ever comparing radar images. Okay, always think about distance from the radar site, because that's going to have to do with the height of the beam. So we're getting blasted right now at Manchester. This was the one I told you about earlier. Remember we were talking about it's headed from Milford, and it was a ton of lightning? Well, take a look. It's still got a ton of lightning. So in Manchester, New Hampshire, we want to make sure that we're sheltered indoors. I can guarantee you that it's been raining for a while, so everybody's inside anyway, right? But nonetheless, you do have the potential of some pretty decent lightning that's coming in, and it's just Bedford's getting into it. Auburn, you're on the east side, obviously, at 93, right? So about 7:10 is the arrival time on the core of the storm. Notice if I make this stuff go away so you don't have to see it in the way, you've got lightning bolts. Look at this. Look at this one. I-93, North Londonderry. Woo! Look at that. Right by Rockingham Road, Perkins Road. We got street level lightning tracking. There you go. Looks like this one was right at Danbury Court, right? Off of Perkins Road, just outside or just to the west of I-93. You're not even into the core of the storm yet. So you've got bolts that are striking outside of the storm. And that's why we always say when thunder roars, go indoors, right? There is that frequent lightning coming into Merrimack and Litchfield now along Route 3 in the Everett. Zoom the view out a little bit more, and you get around Dunstable, you're right on the edge of it, aren't you? You can hear it. You got a little bit of light rain trying to come in, but if you look, you don't have anything big, bad, and ugly that's headed right at you. This is the area that we were looking at some of the, the better storm energy that's available. So right now, there is no warning with the storm that's headed toward Barrie. There's no severe thunderstorm warning with that. You've got a 70% chance of hail. You got a hail size to about a half inch on the estimate right now. That BTI, if you're just joining us, this system I'm using right now is called the Barron system. It's built down in Huntsville, Alabama. And they really specialize in severe weather and particularly tornado tracking. It's part of the reason that Danielle and I love this system and wanted to get it, because we believe that you always want to be prepared for whatever the worst case weather would be, right? So we wanted to make sure that no matter what happens, we get the best tools possible. So this Barron Threat Index at 2.2 tells us that that's not a big tornado index that you're looking at there. So at this point, you're talking about maybe some localized downburst winds that'll come in, and you're talking about what'll probably be some hail that'll come in with this one as well. Another hail core heading out toward Belchertown. It's already raining in Belchertown. You got some cloud to ground strikes, but that hail's not as big. It may grow, however, because I think what we're talking about, you are now another severe thunderstorm warning. You are under the warning. So that storm core is also taking a little bit of a bowing shape. What I mean by that, I'll show you. From 202 down to Ludlow, you got a little bit of a bow shape to it. And when you do that, right at the heart of it, which would be right in here, you've got a chance of producing some damaging wind. So as that storm moves off to the north and east, you want to be on guard. Belchertown about 659. If it holds together, there's a chance of damaging wind. You got the hail, you got the thunder and lightning, and you've got the heavy rain. All right, here's that real nasty storm. Remember we were talking about Southwick was going to be up next? Well, Southwick's up. So time to take it to who's coming up next, right? And that's going to be Springfield. So this storm is going to continue to move to the east-northeast, and that means that Springfield or West Springfield about 712, Longmeadow about 715, Springfield proper at 7:15 and Chicopee about 7:16 or so. Again, that's at the core of the storm. You've already not only got rain, but if you look, you've already got the lightning strikes that are hitting the ground as well. So that means that it's already time to be tucked inside. If you know somebody who's out and still enjoying it Longmeadow, give them a call. Tell them it's time to get inside. We've got the storm that's on the way. Inside the car is fine. It's a safe enough place to be as long as you're not dealing with tornadoes. Cars are just fine. Here we go with the next storm core that's coming out of Torrington and just crossed Route 8. So Harwinton, Burlington, you're up next. That storm will continue to move off to the north and east and hit New Hartford at about 7:18 this evening. Zoom the view out more, and I had told you that I thought probably a lot of these storms would mostly stay near and north of Hartford. Still think that's probably the case. Not to say that you don't get any, but rather you could see that it's much, much weaker when you get on the south side of this thing. And the science behind it we explained earlier. Bottom line is you've got this little miniature area of low pressure that's developed in here. So what that's doing is pulling up some warmth and feeding the storm out ahead of that little mini area of low pressure. So that's the area that you tend to get your most intense energy. And that's why Springfield, Longmeadow, perhaps Munson, Palmer. Palmer, we had heard from one of you on chat who was saying that it's been loud, but not much going on, right? Well, there's about to be something going on. It looks like it's probably going to hold together as it makes its way over Springfield. You're in actually one thing I showed you earlier. Let me show you again. You're in an area of pretty significant thunderstorm energy. So one thing I love to do is a real-time analysis of how much energy we've got in the atmosphere. And so if I zoom this in a little bit, your legend is up at the top. So that yellow's moderate. Notice when you get around Palmer, when you get around Ware, Warren, right, you're into those yellows. So you've got a moderate amount of thunderstorm energy that's on top of you. Same thing when you get from Burlington, Connecticut to Simsbury. And that's why I say that next storm that's just making its way south of Torrington is likely going to hold together as it moves toward Burlington, Avon, and Simsbury because it's got a pocket of increased energy it can feed off of. And for those of you watching from the Boston Metro, look, there's a huge difference from Worcester to Boston in thunderstorm energy. And this is just because we had a wind off the ocean a lot of the day today, and the ocean's so darn cool. So it really has sapped a lot of the thunderstorm energy. If you can swing the wind, you can bring in some of the thunderstorm energy. You can actually, what we call advect it or move it in. We've done that in Ashland. But Ashland's a very different story from Boston, right? It's very different from sitting right at the coastline. So I'll swing you back to the radar, and then I'm going to check your comments, your questions, your feedback, your observations again. Really appreciate everybody who shares those observations. And when I read them, I try to remember to go back to this broad view. So no matter where you're watching from, you've got a good view of the radar. So let me take a look. And again, you may be watching us on any number of chat platforms here. We're sending this out on YouTube, sending this out on Twitch, Facebook, and on X as well. So feel free to chime in on any of these. Okay, let's see. I'm scrolling back because I missed some. Okay. Well, we've got some that's in Spanish, and I probably couldn't. We hope the hurricanes at the coast of the Pacific. The West Coast, Pacific West Coast, will not be hurricanes. Okay, well, that's the best I can do on that one. Definitely getting darker in Haverhill. Hope the river gives a jinx too. I don't know that the river will for you, but I do think that you're not going to have these storms nearly as strong in Haverhill. Essentially, Joe, it looks like, we also, all the way through the Merrimack Valley, got into some of that kind of cooler modified ocean air, and you just saw that in that thunderstorm energy plot. Saw it might have been a microburst down out there. Yeah, we had a microburst earlier today. We had that when you headed into, central Massachusetts had a couple of spots that we ended up getting some observed microbursts that had some pretty nasty bursts. Air was one of the spots that ended up getting a pretty nasty downburst and a lot of trees that were down out of that. That was one we were watching this morning with you. Michelle, thanks so much. I talked to my siblings, put the app on their phones. Oh, good, Michelle. I'm glad to hear that. Been following you for years. Oh, good. Oh, thank you. That's very nice. I'll tell Danielle you send this along as well. Thank you. Still quiet in North Grafton. Nurse B, how tall are these storms? Dark as night in Boxborough, Massachusetts. They are tall, aren't they? As a matter of fact, what I can do for you is, can I do it on here? Oh, do I have it ready to go? You know what? I can tell you off the top of my head, these storms are generally on the order of 40 to 45,000 feet today. However, I can also, let's see if I can bring that up. One thing I'll do is let's swing you over to that other radar program, and we'll give that a shot real quick and see if we can see in real time. Now, the thing about this is we do get an estimate on echo tops. Let me see if I can find that here for you. Echo tops, here we go. We can estimate, is it going to update for me? Or no, it's going to be a pain in the neck, isn't it? That's all right. That happens. Let's see. Is it one update? I don't think so. Well, anyway, bottom line, you can get radar estimates on echo tops. But having said that, what I'm going to do is sometimes what I do is I beat the stuffings out of these computers. I mean, I really mean that. I beat the stuffings out of these computers. So let me swing you back over to the other radar. I'm actually going to restart the other thing that I have going here so that we can get a little bit better look at that again. Stand by while I give that a restart. And it looks like, yeah, here we go. All right, it's closing out, and it took for a while to close. So what I'll do is I'll restart that because I'll show you it's actually really neat from a science standpoint how the radar can estimate how tall the cloud is in the sky. The problem is the radar doesn't go all the way up to the top of the cloud. So you get the estimate, but that truly is all it is an estimate. And usually it goes higher than the radar is aware that it goes. So why don't I, let's see, here we go. Let me switch back over to you now, for you now, and you can see I've restarted it. Looks like it's in a better headspace, and so am I. So let's go ahead and do it, and here you go. So about 37,000 feet. And again, this is the radar estimate on it. There's about 38,000. So you've got more in the sky that's not necessarily being picked up on by the radars. So that's why I say you're between 40 and 45,000. I'd say there's a 40,000 foot top, 40,400 feet that shows up in Lowell. Pretty cool tool, right? It's really neat. And I mentioned earlier that I love this tool for a whole bunch of reasons. It was built locally, which I just think is so cool. It's called WSV3. And it was built by a guy named Paul Maravelis, who's in Windham, New Hampshire. And I just think that's so cool. We've got some really amazing weather tech built by a local guy who's right in Windham, and it's a great program. So one thing I could do here, I showed this to you earlier. This is your downburst wind estimate, and so notice coming in toward Barrie, you've got a downburst wind estimate of about 54 miles an hour. Then you get this big pocket where it's gusty, but it's not damaging. There's a small pocket that may be trying to make its way into where? And then you've got another bigger pocket of downburst wind potential that's showing up essentially just crossing the state line, and that's the storm we've been talking about that's headed in towards Springfield. So look, to explain that a little bit more, the reason that I really like this product of downburst wind estimates is because look how quickly and easily you can see the darker coloring, and you say, okay, those are my areas where I've got some pockets of downburst winds that are going on. What I will tend to do is try to line that up with some of the downpours, and there you go, bam. You got one of those areas right now. All three of them are lined up with downpours. So that means all three of them are valid. All three of those areas have the potential to produce, some damaging wind gusts. Sorry, I don't mean to make you sick. Let's zoom in a little bit more. There we go. Here's the storm now that's making its way towards Springfield. So again, you've got thunder and lightning in Springfield right now. All right, but there is the steadiest of the storm and the worst of the core with the potential for damaging wind and hail. There's your hail. I'm willing to bet that hail probability is higher. I'm going to show you the other system I was using for the hail estimate in just a second. But this is going to come right along 57, and as it comes across 57, it's en route to Agawam in Springfield after that. All right. Let me get you switched back over to that other program I was on originally because I do want to get that hail estimate going for you. All right, I've got you switched over, and now I'll switch myself over as well. There we go. So let's zoom in to the storm that's coming through the Pioneer Valley right now. All right. Lightning has died down a little bit around Southwick. That's nice. We may see it tick up again, though, as the storm comes down 57, largely because when you've got a hail core like that, it's one of two things that can be going on. One is you may be looking at the hail core actually spiking up into the sky. The other is it could be collapsing to the ground. So I'll take you to another tool for that in a second. But bottom line is that you've got a pretty decent storm with this one. You've got a severe thunderstorm warning that remains in effect for the Pioneer Valley until 7 p.m., 3 more minutes. We'll see whether they decide to continue it a little bit longer or not. My guess would be, based on what we're looking at, it'll get continued. That's my guess, because we've still got these pockets of potentially damaging wind. And look, those pockets have been verifying pretty well tonight. So there's the next storm core, the one that we said was headed toward Granby in 202. So that's going to be continuing to move off to the north and east. Southwick about 714, Suffield about 721. Let me get back over to the chat. Thanks for doing this. Can you hit the Hartford Metro? Absolutely. Stand by, Matt. There's Hartford Metro. There's the storms mostly going to your north. If I scan you back off to the west, again, like I mentioned earlier, you're not going to get missed by thunderstorms. I just don't think you're going to get the same significance that we're dealing with some of these other ones, right? Because you've got absolutely cloud ground lightning strikes that are coming in from the south and west, from Bantam all the way down to Southbury. But notice, I mean, the intensity, it's a whole different ballgame. So, yes, I do think that you'll get some of this in on top of you in Hartford over the course of the next hour. I do not think, in fact, if that little finger down by trying to get toward Bristol makes it in on you, it'll be about 25 minutes. But nonetheless, I don't think you're going to be talking about something that's going to be anywhere near as strong as what's to the north in Granby and headed for Enfield right now. Latest scan just came in on that one, by the way. So here we go. Let me get that out of the way. 704 at Granby, 722 at Suffield, 723 at Windsor Locks. That is on the center, the core of the storm. Obviously, it's already right now an area that we've got some heavy rain, thunder, and lightning that's coming down. Let's zoom the view out a little bit more for us here. There we go. There's that storm headed toward Barrie. Remember, this was one of the ones that we looked at together with the downburst gust potential, and we did see a small corridor of 50 to 55 mile per hour wind gusts possible. Admittedly, 58 miles per hour, you're going to need for your severe thunderstorm warning, so you may not even get a warning out of this one, but it still would produce some gusty wind as it comes on through. There's a pretty good amount of cloud to ground lightning with it, which says that the core is maintaining itself pretty good, coming up on Route 122. South side of it's been at 32 and then down around Hardwick. So that storm core is going to hit Barrie head on as it moves in on top of you. Lightning in Salem, New Hampshire now. Thank you very much for that. Let's take a look. And so here you are up in Salem. So my guess would be, yep, there you go. You've got that nice cluster that's up around Derry and then stretched up 93. So that's what you're hearing and seeing, and you've got it in the distance. Closest strike to you in Salem so far. Look at that, pretty far outside the heavy rain, right? Just over Nashua right now in Hudson. So just kind of that testament to the fact that you can oftentimes get the lightning to strike outside of the storm core itself. Let's see. Pat Fan, thanks for the live stream. You're welcome. How's Lee, New Hampshire looking? Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look. So basically, when you get around Lee, we've already had, a number of downpours move through, but you've still got, and for those who don't know, Lee is right by Durham. You've still got the core of the next one coming in. This one is probably, as you can see, going to go up toward Deerfield, home of the Deerfield Fair, and Candia, about 710, 727 on the core of that. However, for you in Lee, Greg, you are going to be on the south side of this, and you are going to get dealt at least a piece of this. It's going to be heavy rain. It's going to be thunder and lightning. It is not going to be damaging, as best I can tell, in Lee when it arrives to you. It's likely just going to be a nice show, a nice light show and a nice rain show as it comes on through. Nope. And there we go. And Craig says, lots of lightning in Lee and Nottingham. There you go. Yeah, and so you've got another one that's coming in. Miss the heavy rain in Northfield, Mass. Good. Excellent. All right. You're welcome. Absolutely, Alyssa. Fred, Boston is mostly going to miss the storms. I don't want to tell you there wouldn't be a single thing and have you go out there and have a late-night picnic, but because the storms are coming east. But one of the things we've been looking at is there's way less thunderstorm energy right now in eastern Massachusetts. And the reason for that is just because the wind came off the ocean all day. So it doesn't mean it's going to entirely and totally die. It just means that it's not going to strengthen, and it's not even going to maintain its current strength. Flash flood warning out till 8:30 now for the Pioneer Valley. Heavy rains come down long and hard enough that we're starting to see these additional new flash flood warnings come out. Obviously, what that means is we're going to be careful for any flooded areas. Never drive through the flooded areas, right? That's one of the top rules. All right, okay. We've now got something interesting to look at in northern Connecticut. So let's take a look together. Not the end of the world, but we're getting a little bit of tightening with the rotation on the storm at Granby. Let's go ahead and swing over to we're going to swing over to the velocity product here in a second. What I want to do is, let's go ahead and play that. Great. Superb. So this is what I'm looking at right here. So basically, let's go back over to the regular radar. Yeah, so it's close to the storm core. It's not tucked directly underneath it. So that's why I say it's not shout from the hills type stuff. But nonetheless, this is still a really nasty storm, and this is one that I really have to believe. Yeah, I mean, this is. I guess there's no warning with this one currently, judging by the looks. I would think it won't be long. That would just be my guess. Windsor locks about 727, Suffield about 728. Now, admittedly, you had a downtick in lightning for a little bit, but it's starting to come back up again. Of course, it's. I'll be very candid with you. It's easy for me because being a meteorologist who's just relaying the information to you, I can tell you, and give you my forecast that you're going to get. The potential for what will end up being damaging wind in pockets. You're going to get, heavy rain, hail, and thunder and lightning. But when it comes to the actual warnings from the government, look, they're held to a standard, which is a false alarm ratio. They get measured by how many warnings they issue that don't verify. And they're held to a standard of probability detection, which means did they predict it when it happened? That's a really difficult fine line to walk. And when you think about that for a second, look, the meteorologists issuing the warnings for the government, right, they're meteorologists just like myself, right? And so you really have to weigh a lot, but you have to do it in the moment as to whether or not a storm is going to reach the threshold to produce damage that actually will be observed and verifiable, or else you get a hit on that false alarm ratio. Not to say that is something that's always on the mind, but I don't have to deal with that, right? I can tell you, look, I'm looking at this. It looks like there's pockets of damage that may be done. And certainly my credibility's on the line. But it's not something where there's, a government kind of a score that's being kept on it, right? And I'm very much aware of that. And that's why, you'll never hear me one way or another talk about warnings and if they should be out or shouldn't be out. I might say I think what'll be coming, but you'll never hear me pass any judgment because that is one heck of a tough job. And I give hats off to everybody who does it. So Windsor locks, you're up next. You've got the storm that's right on the on your doorstep. Let's see. Again, when I look off behind me, it's only because I'm checking to see what I've got. So I do have, I still have some amount of at least a kind of weak rotation inside this storm that's coming off of Tariffville, heading into Windsor Lock. So I still have to believe we're going to have an area of at least a small pocket of damaging wind that's going to be coming across Route 20, and then essentially probably very close to 140 and 91 and in toward Windsor Locks itself. Wouldn't surprise me given the way that this storm looks right now. Admittedly, the wind speeds are not that high when you look at the velocity scan. If I were to pull that up for you, you ready? I'll go ahead and I'll survey the storm. I'll sample it for you. 34 miles an hour, right? But what I want to do is I want to swing you back over to that other program that we were looking at together before, WSV3, all right? I want to swing that over to my downdraft gust potential. And is it going to need another restart for me to show it to you? I think it is. Well, bottom line is I'm willing to bet that when we get right around that area, let's see if I can turn it off and on and make it work again, and I'll show it to you. I haven't shown it to you intentionally because I don't want to. I'll show it to you if I can't see it. But nonetheless, I'll go ahead and I'll quit it and restart it, and we'll try that again. What I'm going to want to see here is I'm going to want to see whether or not I've got something going that's got a downburst potential underneath the heart of it. And I think that probably is going to be what we see at some place like Windsor Lock. So give me a second and I'll get that loaded up for you for those of you that are in Connecticut. Light to moderate rain now in Lunenburg. Awesome. Jonathan, getting dark here in Springfield, Massachusetts. Yep. All right. Very good, Jonathan. And you already had, one round come through, but we're going to take a look at you here in just a second. I'm rebooting my other system so you can see what's going on with that downburst wind potential. Here we go. All right, let's zoom it in, and then I'm going to switch over to it. I want to get it set up so you can see it before I switch it to you because you're seeing more valuable information than what I have in front of me right now. Here we go. Let's see if we can make this happen. We'll get it over to downdraft gust potential. Now, all right, okay. Well, we're going to give up on that for the time being. We'll come back to that a little bit later on. Let me get back to what you're looking at, and let's switch you back over. So Springfield, Massachusetts, we've got right now what is the darkening sky, right? Well, you're in on it. You've got the rain that's starting to come down. Looks like the core of that storm is weakened. Agawam's got the worst of it right now, and it's not looking extremely haily anymore in Agawam. My guess would be that our hail has come down a little bit. We can switch over to 1 hour hail. I can swing things through. Let's say we'll do over the last 15 minutes, and you can actually see where the hail cores were, and they really have been having trouble after getting through Westfield and blasting Westfield and Route 202, having trouble making it farther off to the east, right? Nonetheless, if we go back to the more kind of conventional radar that you're used to seeing, here's the latest on that storm core at Agawam. You've got now no hail necessarily indicated, so if there's anything, it's probably pea-size. And there are your towns and times coming in across I-91 through Agawam at 7:09, Longmeadow at 7:14, and then Wilbraham at 7:37 is the expected arrival time on the core. Keep in mind what we've been looking at together in a lot of these areas. We are now starting to outrun the worst of the thunderstorm energy. So Barry, you did just take that direct hit we were waiting on. It's headed toward Hubbardston by about 7:25, but you're down to a 40% chance of hail and a maximum hail size of about half an inch or so. Farther to the south, this has become the storm of note in New England right now, and this is the one headed directly for Windsor Locks. This storm now is still estimated by the algorithm that we have in-house to be severe, and I would say that there is, as I mentioned, a good chance that you're going to see some localized wind gusts that may cause damage along Route 20 to Route 140, and then into Windsor Locks when the arrival time will be about 7:30 p.m. or so. Let me get that out of the way. Let's zoom things out a little bit. All right, we've got another kind of storm lobe developing near Southbury. That is not nearly as strong. The big game in town right now is the one in northern Connecticut. There's an updated scan for you on that. Updated towns and times on the center of the storm. All right. Overall motion east-northeast at about 29 miles an hour, 70% chance of hail. Again, my concern would be a localized burst of damaging wind that would be a possibility. And then here's that storm core in New Hampshire we were looking at. Remember, we were saying that the heart of it was going to miss Lee, but nonetheless, there it is coming up over Deerfield, and next up would be Barrington, and eventually makes it into Rochester. Now, the thing is, it's been raining and lightning for so long in Rochester. You say, go ahead, give me another, right? It's not like it's going to be that big of a deal compared to what I've had. True. The only thing is, remember, the rain adds up again and again and again. And those rain amounts end up leading to, at least some amount of flooding that's going on in terms of street flooding, significant stuff with that. Not many flash flood warnings out in New Hampshire. Having said that, I'm willing to bet there's some flash flooding going on. We do have some. We've got some that are around Merrimack County, New Hampshire, Hillsborough. And let me zoom in, and actually you'll see that it's actually at Henniker and Hillsborough themselves in terms of the towns that are underneath that flash flood warning. Looks like we've got, another flash flood warning kind of left over from earlier. Is that what we're dealing with back out across Vermont? Yeah, till 7:30, that one will remain in effect for you. And then down to the south again. Oh, all right, let's get an update again on that, the biggest game in town, right, which is that one headed for Windsor Locks. Rotation still not tight enough to be concerned about the fact that we may be dealing with tornadic development yet. Still watching it, but not tight enough to be worried about that yet. So essentially, this is going to be your hail core that's coming in. There's your 70% chance of hail with a max hail size of 3/4 of an inch. My guess is that'll verify. This has been pretty close and verifying pretty well over the course of the afternoon and evening so far. Looks like Enfield to Windsor Locks will be up, and then Summers, you're going to be on the far side of this one. So that's going to still be probably, I would guess, you're still probably a good at least 30 minutes out in Summers, maybe more than that. But let's call it 30 among friends. All right. Let's go ahead and switch over to the velocity plot on this one. And yeah, this is even not taking downburst wind into account. I mean, 35, 38, probing the center of it. Let's see, 39. So you've got 40-mile-per-hour gusts just moving horizontal inside the storm. You add the hail and the downburst to that, the downpour to that, and I would imagine you've got a small core of gusts that's probably at least blowing over 50 and capable of causing damage in that area. So, again, Windsor Locks, stay sheltered indoors away from windows as this one comes in on top of you. Interesting also, we color these lightning strikes Many lightning strikes are negatively charged, which is what we color in white. We're seeing a lot of positively charged strikes increasing very quickly. When you get along Route 20, you say, what does that mean? Well, there have been different studies on that, and I don't know that anybody necessarily has a firm answer on what that always means each time. But nonetheless, it can be associated with a storm that's strengthening. And actually, there's the latest scan, which looks pretty decent too. So, yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and let's take the latest algorithm out of that. So, all right, we're still talking about a 70% chance of hail. I'll wait to see if we get a new scan that comes in out of that one. And that is that's the game that I want to continue to watch right now. I'm going to watch that Windsor Loch storm. The one, oh, wow, look at that. Springfield, the core, has flared up a little bit now as it comes over Agawam. You're still at only about a 30% chance of hail at about a half inch. The lightning has become much more sporadic. This is not the same wall of lightning we were talking about earlier, right? So there's the towns and times on your screen headed toward Wilbraham and Hampton. Sorry, I keep moving around and the camera keeps moving around with me there, but I don't mean to make you seasick. All right, should we expect the system to move into Lynn, Massachusetts? Not in its current form or in anywhere close to its current form, no. Highly unlikely that you would get anything like this. If we zoom the view out a little bit, by the time it gets to Lynn, you've had an onshore wind all day. This is going to outrun most of the thunderstorm energy. And as a result, I don't think you're going to see much of anything that's going to be intense. So that's the answer. That's the long and short of it for you here. Sky is absolutely black in New Britain, Connecticut. All right, thank you very much. Let's take a look together. So New Britain, here you are. And basically, I think your black sky is the combination of the fact, two things. I think the fact that we're talking about the storm that's north of you at Hartford, but moreover, it's these tops that are to 45,000 feet or 40,000 feet that are off to your west. So you get a setting sun that's off to the west, and you got a huge towering storm that's over near Oxford. So I think that's probably just blocking out whatever you would have had left for sun over the course of the evening here. Lots of lightning near Portland, Maine right now. All right, let's take care of you. Get up to Portland. There we go. Yep, you're not kidding. Look at that, right? Let's switch over to the gray main radar. And again, if you were watching earlier, I was saying that the past 3 years or so never looks as hot in terms of the intensity on the gray main radar. So, word of caution to those of you who do your own kind of forecasting. A lot of times, a little worse than it looks, but. Nonetheless, there you are. You got a lot of cloud to ground strikes, Falmouth to Portland, right? So let's zoom in a little bit. And there it is, York Landing and Falmouth Foreside. Sunset Landing's got some lightning coming in right now, Chandler Cove, and then all the way back down through Portland and the Old Port. There we go. There's a lightning strike that came down. Look at that. Just outside the Old Port, huh? My goodness. Yeah, you've got that heavy rain. You're not done yet either, by the way. You got hours of rain to go. You really do. Because that stuff that's coming up out of the south and west near Dover and Somersworth is going to have to move over you. Now, it's not going to be severe when it gets there. It's not going to cause damage. But there's a lot of lightning going on still. When you get around Lebanon, Maine, that's coming into Sanford. Somersworth, New Hampshire, you got a decent core of lightning that's happening there. And actually, kind of to some extent, a surprising amount of lightning, given how not heavy the storms are when you get around Raymond and Epping, meaning not damaging, not strong, right? But nonetheless, you still got a pretty decent amount of lightning that's going on in here. And actually, it's worth noting, there's still lightning that's embedded. Look at this. You get out by I-93, Manchester to the Hooksett Tolls. You come up around Pembroke, Route 28. You've still got lightning embedded. And there's even still at least a couple of strikes near Goffstown. So my point in that is you may not be on the front side, but you don't want to necessarily go dancing around in this particular rain. There's some rain you can dance in. This isn't necessarily one of them. Storm that we were watching earlier that it moved through Ware. There it is. Headed off to the northeast. There's your towns and times. North Brookfield 723, Rutland 744. Doesn't at this point look like it's likely to be severe. I understand you can see the algorithm. I'll do it again. You can see the algorithms labeling it as severe, but I highly doubt that we've got any damaging wind that's associated with that right now. And it's probably nothing more than pea-sized hail. Oh, there's the severe thunderstorm warning. There we go. So this is the storm we were watching coming in through Windsor Locks. And indeed, we've got now that burst of wind that's going to come in. Well, this will be fun. What we're going to do, meteorologically fun, not fun if you're under it. What we're going to do is I'm going to load up Windsor Locks Airport. That would be BDL. And we're going to watch the observations to see what we get when that moves through. Current gusts are to 25 miles per hour. They actually, interesting, they just gusted out of the north at 25. So that tells me, very interesting. That tells me that, okay, yep, oh, there you go. Isn't that something? So what happened here is, again, red indicates air moving one way and green indicates air moving another. We just had that little area of low pressure I was telling you about. That's going right over Windsor Locks right now. Ooh, I can't wait to see exactly how high they end up gusting out of this as it comes by. But you've still got this broad scale rotation, two areas of it, a bit of a shear axis, we call it, a difference in wind direction ahead of it and back behind it. But nonetheless, we looked together at the fact that when you get underneath the downpours, that can help to increase the chance of downburst wind. And that was my concern right in Windsor Locks. And here it comes, right? Here comes what is going to be a hail core with this one. Here comes what's going to be a bit of a wind core. We'll see what we get reported out of Windsor Locks and whether or not we end up with any damage reports. But it's been enough anyway to warrant that severe thunderstorm warning that'll be out till 8 o'clock now for the storm as it continues to move out to Somers and eventually to Stafford as well. Of course, I just can't help but keep refreshing that Windsor Locks ob. I got some 28, 25. Now, they're in it at 25. That might be the most the airport goes. We'll see. But I guarantee you somebody in there, when we looked at that horizontal wind and we saw that velocity was gusting to 40 miles an hour, and that was without the hail and the downpour, somebody's going to be getting a good, decent gust out of that. I want to go back over. Remember, the whole idea on this is that this is supposed to be an interactive experience. I'm no longer, and Danielle's no longer just a broadcaster. We're now interactors. And so use the chat. If you're watching on YouTube, you can use it there, Twitch, Facebook, or X. We've got it going on all of them. I think I'm seeing folks who are chiming in on all. If afterwards I go and I look and I find out that wasn't the case, my apologies if I didn't see. And I do go back and look, and I will go back and make sure that I didn't miss anybody, because I think that's very important. Let's see. Do we have a... all right, see, and I'm just discovering, folks, now that positive strikes can occur near the final phase of the storm. You know, it's interesting, Atomic Brain, to hear you say that on the live stream chat here, because actually the thing that I didn't want to say was that I also have seen studies about the fact that an increase in positive strokes can also indicate when you've got an increasing storm that's ready to go tornadic. So interesting to hear what you've got there with the final phase of the storm, which I fully believe what you've kind of done for research there. I certainly don't get me wrong. It was just one of those things that I wasn't going to necessarily mention that only because I didn't think we were probably at a point where that was actually a reality. But now you can actually see that as that storm is coming into Windsor Locks, this one, it's held its own, and the positive strikes have decreased. We've really gone over more to negative strikes, right? You're seeing a transition over to the white strikes and the more negative strikes here. So you've still got some positives, but not as many as before. So in this particular instance, it looks like it either held its own or maybe had a slight uptick when you got those positive strikes coming down. So, but nonetheless, thanks for chiming in on that one. Let's see. Let me go back over to the other chats to make sure I don't miss anybody. Pine Tree Pilgrim. Lots of lightning near Portland, Maine, right? Oh, that I just talked about that with you. Thank you. Your passion for the weather makes you data better. Oh, thank you very much. Really appreciate that. John, very kind. Kyle. Hi, Kyle. Anything headed toward Providence, South Shore? Is the activity moving north-northeast? Kyle, let's answer the question directly. The answer is not much headed your way, but what I'm going to do is I want to bring this up for you on the forecast and on thunderstorm energy. So here is the thunderstorm energy plot. All right. So Kyle, you are in an area that's a little bit higher thunderstorm energy. You've got low to moderate energy that's around your neck of the woods down to Providence. Okay. Because you didn't get the energy sucked out of the air from an onshore wind like we did near the coastline. Also worth noting, it's been increasing ever so slightly, the thunderstorm energy around Easton and Norton. So when I look at this, I say, I wouldn't tell you that you're going to get nothing, because as these storms move east, they may be able to maintain to some extent. Having said that, the southern end is very ragged. You can see when you get around Waterbury, headed for Wallingford, decent cell there, but definitely really, really broken up here, right? So when I look at that, I say, you know, if I'm looking for Attleboro, Providence, Pawtucket, I'm saying, well, I might get something kind of scattered to move through, but I'm very unlikely to get the same level of intensity that we've been dealing with farther to the north and west. So the answer to you is that the chances are probably better that you don't get much rather than that you get something decent sized. But let me do a little better than that. Let me see if I can take you to the forecast map. There we go. Timestamp in the upper left of your screen. Notice as everything moves in, there you are, Attleboro to Providence at 9:15. Showers are in, but whoa, look at them now. Let me go backwards. Ready? Hold on. I'm going to go back to, that's now. And that's when they get to you. You see what I'm saying? Runs out of the energy. And then, yeah, when you get down southeastern Mass, the Cape, I mean, what do we get? We get clipped maybe, right? Same thing, Cape Ann, times, that's 10:15, right? So you get the idea. You get the idea that it'll come through, but it's going to be a very, very different version of its former self when it comes in. Let's go ahead and get back to the radar because we are dealing with that storm that's down in Connecticut and Windsor Locks. And we'll take a closer look at that, but I also want to keep checking out the chat because I don't want to miss anybody. Fred, Brookline, Mass. All right, we're some rain showers, 66. Thank you from Londonderry. Some heavy rain and light thunder for now. All right, Selena, thank you. Absolutely. Let's refresh on the chat over here. Got a couple of different chats going, so I like to try and make sure I'm on top of everybody so that I don't miss anyone. That's the goal, right? I don't want to miss anybody. Because this is meant to be interactive. It's meant to be us all kind of sharing the experience together rather than me just talking at you. Let's see. All right. So here we are with our active severe thunderstorm warning over Windsor Locks. Yep, latest scan just came in. Let's zoom it in. That's a new one. So we're going to get one about every minute out of this. Okay. So I look at this, and again, we're over to the velocity where I'm looking for the red, meaning air moving in one direction, and green indicating air moving in the other. I am seeing, of course, one area that you can see, too, that stands out to me, right? And it's headed in toward Melrose, Connecticut. But when I switch things back over to the actual radar, well, okay, that's interesting. So that's one area that I would want to watch. Let's go back again. Stand by. Yeah, but that area of kind of the tighter apparent rotation is not tucked under the updraft. So if I don't see it tucked under the updraft or very close to it, to a point where it could pull under the updraft, I'm usually not overly concerned on a tornadic spin up there. So no reason for concern on that regard. I think severe thunderstorm warning, very well done and well deserved. Because of the fact that probably will be a little pocket of damaging wind in there. And this one, again, is going to run all the way out to Stafford and is up till 8 p.m. So, look, I mean, with that, the big reason I came up about almost 2 hours ago, a little under that, was because I knew we were coming into the time where we were at the most risk for some sort of rotation to be happening inside these storms. And we did see some of them taking on kind of a broad scale rotation, and at times where they would tighten, but nothing that ever became warranting of concern for a tornado. So there's good news there. There's the update on the storm that's coming in toward Wilbraham. We had kind of left off that you were on the outside of the Townsend Times, and now Palmer to Brimfield. By the time we get to about 7:45 or a little bit after that at Brimfield, you've got that coming in on top of you. We've got another round that's making its way down Route 2. We've been hit a few times today, Fitchburg, Leominster. Here we go again. Coming in on top of you, Princeton. You as well. Shirley, you'll be up next. That's going to drift northeast. So Groton and Pepperell, I know the range is stopped, but plan on it coming back in. If you're thinking about trying to do a fire pit or something like that, it's awful wet out there now anyway, but don't bother. It's coming in on top of you. Watch it from inside. You'll get a little bit more of a light show that'll come by again. Flooding certainly verified. Government issued some flash flood warnings, and rightfully so. But in this case, this was an area with a tree that came down in Montague. This one here. Charlemont flash flooding washed out Legate Hill Road at Route 2. All right. What do we got down here just outside current flash flood area? That's trees and wires down. Just got posted as flash flood, but nonetheless. So you get the idea. We've still got the thunder and lightning going on near Maine. This is a pretty good core that's coming out of Sanford. A lot of thunder and lightning with that one. Let's just take a quick look before I'm going to sign off fairly soon, I think, as long as there's nothing that really jumps out. Yeah, you know what? It's Sanford, just so you know. It's Sanford. This is pretty good. That's pretty good wind. So I don't know if you're going to get a warning out of that one or not, but what I would say is as it moves northeast along and northwest of 202 from Waterboro to Newfield, might be a good idea to stay sheltered inside as that storm comes by. That's got a pretty good burst with it. That's got pretty good burst. So don't be shocked if you hear about something that comes out with that one in terms of a warning. Again, you look at the radar, say it doesn't look bad. Yeah, I know, but that's out of the gray Maine radar, and if I switch over to the Taunton radar, it definitely looks a little hotter, as it always does. So with that, I think, look, bottom line, use our app going forward through the rest of the evening. It's got a pretty good handle on this. I'm pretty happy with where it's at. Oh, look at this, just as I get ready to tell you goodbye. Hold on a second. I got another one that's firing up. Okay, so you switch to the New York radar. It doesn't look quite so bad, so that's good, coming in toward Wallingford. So I was saying, use our app, make the most of it. It's a really powerful tool. I can't tell you to be perfect every single time, but I can tell you that what you want to use is when you go to the radar page, use the past plus future mode. I always say that, and the reason I say that is because it honestly, the real truth about what I'm saying on that. I mean, I'm always honest with you, but the real reason behind why I say that is because it introduces you, the human factor. You see, if you just do the future mode, it's just the computer. If you just do now, well, you don't know where it's going, right? Past plus future shows where it's been, where it is now, and where it's going from the computer. So you can kind of make that determination. Does the computer look like it's got a good handle on it, or is this thing kind of barreling right at me? So that's why I always recommend that past plus future mode. All right, it was a busy day for some. It was a quiet day for others. Appreciate everybody who has been here. Let's see, what do we have? Rob says they are in the club seats around 300 range. Rob, I think you might have been talking about something I was talking about, and if you were, sorry. Otherwise, I think I missed the first part of whatever it is you were asking or talking about. I'll give you one more second to chime in. But I want to thank everybody who's been a part of this. It's been good being with you. And I'm going to go and share a little time with my family. And the girls are probably just about tucked in. But if there's anything that's real nasty that flares up in Connecticut or on the Mass-Connecticut border again, I'll get back up with you. But otherwise, we'll sign off and say thank you very much. We appreciate your support at 1 Degree Outside. If you don't have the app yet, totally free, App Store and Google Play. Make sure you download it. If you haven't subscribed yet at YouTube or followed us yet on Facebook or any of our social media platforms, please do. 1 Degree Outside.